Now, after at Christmas, our 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 nun took us not only to the church, but after the church, they had some performances for children. And in those performances, they also showed Jews, but there was some kind of, anti-Semitic feeling, because, the Catholics believe that the Jews killed Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And since majority of Polish people were Catholics, it was quite common that many people were anti-Semitic. Now, of course, most people, they were anti-Semitic, they didn't like the Jews in general, but they had Jewish friends and they had good relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And also myself and my brother in school, we had good friends, Jewish friends and Polish friends. Now only seldom the Polish anti-Semitic boys were calling, oh, Jew, something, there.
Mm-hmm.
So we were feeling some, some anti-Semitism, but, the feelings of Jews in Poland were different depending on the group of the Jewish people, the part of the Jewish community that you belong to,
Mm-hmm.
In eastern Poland, the peasants were anti-Semitic. You know why? Because when Jews came to Poland, now I have to go back in history. I have to go back to the 14th, 15th century. One of the greatest, most famous Polish kings was Casimir the Great, and that was in early 14th century. He is known as the Polish king who came to Poland, the Polish king that was a king of Poland in wood. I mean, it was primitive. Buildings were mostly of wood and even worse. And he invited Jewish and German craftsmen and also Jewish people who were managing money. He invited them to come to Poland. At that time in Western Europe, there was, very strong anti-Semitic movement. The Jews were persecuted in Spain, in France, and also in Germany. So when the king invited, the Jews came from South Europe and from Germany. The Jews from Germany they were called Ashkenazi, and the Jews from South Europe, they were called how they were called? They were, they had different habits. The Ashkenazi Jews had more Western habits, and the Jews from South, from North Africa, South Europe, they had their own different habits. Also, the food was different. Now, before World War II, when Hitler came to power, the situation in Germany was very difficult, and Germany was in a recession, and also there was a strong feeling that Germany the Germans were angry that they lost World War I. They wanted revenge. And Hitler promised them that he will make Germany strong again. And also he told the Germans that they are a higher race, and he was promoting racism. And also he was teaching that the Jewish people are a low grade of race, and that they should be eliminated from Germany. And it was the German people. He got a lot of followers in the German National Socialist Party, NSDAP, National Sozialistische German Arbeiterpartei, Party of Workers. It was a socialist party, but it is nationalist, It was a Nazi party. And I couldn't understand how the German society, the German nation, who was so highly educated, who was the German nation that was leading in many fields of culture, of science, of arts, of music, how that German people could join the Hitler Nazis, and how they could not oppose Hitler to do what he later did. One of the answers to my doubts I found in this book that was written by a Jewish Nobel Prize winner from the Breslau University that I attended. I also have a book that I would recommend everybody who would be interested in finding out the way of thinking of the Germans that can, to a certain degree, explain how their brain was working, how they were thinking, and not opposing Hitler strong enough. And that book was written by a Jewish author who was very liberal. He is an American. He was raised early in the United States, but he left, his family went to France, and he was educated in France, and he wrote in French. He wrote several books, but one book that he wrote was about the German people. That book got the first prize, the highest prize in French literature. It was written in French, and then it was translated into English. And they say here that the English translation is even better than the original French. But anyway, what is very interesting, this guy, before he wrote that book, it took him 5 years to study the documents that were left, and they were not available in German archives. They were closed. They were not available to historians, to anybody. Only a few years ago, they started admitting historians from the outside Germany to come and study and read those documents. So he read all the main documents that were important for the understanding of how it all was happened. Now he didn't write a scientific book. He wrote fiction. He not only spent time in the German archives, but also he went to all the places where the German army had main encounters with the Russian army in eastern Poland, in in Ukraine, in Belarusia, in Lithuania, in he went to Stalingrad, he went to Moscow, he went to Leningrad, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and he got an excellent knowledge of all the territories. So in his book, he described everything in a very accurate way, although the book was it was fiction, and it was written as memories of a German, highly educated philosopher, professor, who took part, who in early beginnings of the Nazi Party, he joined the Nazi Party. Now, most of the people in the Nazi Party were not educated, and they were educated, but not highly educated people. And most of the German educated people and highly educated people, although they did not join the Nazis, but they did not oppose them. And in that book, he tries to show he arranged his story in such a way that you could understand the reasons of the actions of the German people. But that book got a very high critics in France, in France, but in the United States, it didn't get much popularity. So they published 3 editions of millions of copies of the book in French in France, and the English edition also was published in millions in Europe. But in the United States, they published 17,000 books, and you can still buy this book for 95 cents. I bought three of these originals for the English translation for almost 95 cents or a few dollars. If you want, I can give you to read but that book, but that's up to you. So, I think I stopped at the moment when the World War II started, right?
Yes.
On September 1st, 1939, the German army went through the... Again, I have to go a little back. You know, when the Germans were preparing for war in Russia, Stalin was at the top rule. And Stalin was also crazy, you know, and he made a purge among Russian people. That was before World War II. And he also made a purge in the Russian army. And he killed, arrested many of the Russian generals. And when Hitler built up the German army and Stalin knew about that, he was afraid that the Germans will not only attack Poland, but they